Well, it started out for me. I didn't think I was much good at anything. I learned I had some math and conceptual and logical ability, so I was looking for a place to go to school that was what was emphasized rather than all the other abilities I needed in other places. So I went to MIT where the language was math and everything was concepts. And after I finished there, I went to work for a consulting firm in Boston, a full-line consulting firm. And it was a great experience for me in that I got to work in most of the types of consulting work they did in product development, process development, management services, strategy, innovation, and so on. And I was looking for a chance to go in business for myself or with other people I would meet, and I thought that was a good kind of hunting ground for those opportunities. After I was there about 2 years, my father called me and asked me to come back and join his firm here in Wichita, Kansas. And there are basically two businesses that he had. The bigger one was called Rock Island Oil Company, and it had a gathering system, a crude oil gathering system in southern Oklahoma. So that was one business, and then the other was Koch Engineering Company, which really didn't do engineering. It made distillation tower internals. So this company was a small company that made those internals. So as I said, he asked me to come back and join the firm, and I turned him down because where I grew up was on a farm, and it was an experimental farm. My father was a chemical engineer. He called himself a half-baked chemist, always experimenting. So we had chickens and cattle and horses, and he was experimenting with different feeds, with genetics and so on. And I was the one selected to do all the dirty jobs out there. Even as green as I was, it was pretty clear what needed to be done. In studying science and innovation, you knew you could not be stagnant and survive for long. There was this protectionist mentality there that they had developed the designs for these tower internals, and so they wouldn't share them with the customers, and the major oil companies and the major contractors who were the customers, major chemical companies, said, well, we need to understand how these design works. We've got to feel good about them. We can't just rely on you. So we were losing business. And then they had international customers who wanted not to supply from the US, supply from Europe. And we didn't have a plant there, so we had all these subcontractors, and they divided the various pieces up to protect the manufacturing know-how. And so it was very inefficient process. So, I mean, it didn't take somebody really sophisticated in business or operations to see all that needed to change. So that we have to create value for our customers or they're not going to do business with us. So if they want to know our design, how to design them, we'll share that. And then I went to Europe and set up a plant in northern Italy to manufacture for ourselves there. And then started adding other capabilities, like I hired somebody in commercial development to look for new allied products so we could start growing. And so my father was impressed, so he pretty well turned over the rest of it to me, which was this crude oil gathering system. And then we applied the same kind of methodology, but obviously in a much different business. And then that worked, all this worked just beyond my belief. Yeah, the virtuous cycle was kind of the culmination of all the studying I did on the principles of scientific progress. And then when I got back there, I started studying all these other disciplines on the principles of social progress as well. And when I'd learn a principle, I would immediately try to apply it. And so putting all that together I came up with this concept of the virtuous cycle that works this way. The starting point is to understand what abilities you have that could create capabilities that will create superior value for others. So that's the starting point, is developing capabilities that will create superior value for others, and then to apply them for the best opportunities for that, and then continually improve and add to those capabilities, which then open new opportunities, which then point to the need for additional capabilities, which lead to still more capabilities. And this, if it all works out, leads to continual improvement and progress and growth. And so that's been, I didn't have all this formulated back then, but we were doing a lot of aspects of that. And more recently, we've been formally applying it, and that the more you can articulate and conceptualize what you're doing, then the more you will do of it and the more you will learn from it. Part of that is the luxury of being a private company, because if you're a public company, like we had this crude oil gathering business, say, well, you're in the oil business. Well, we knew how to gather oil, but what did we know about refining or running service stations or exploration? So that made no sense. So we said, okay, what capabilities do we have, given that we're good and we're very successful in building that business, that we could apply to other businesses? So looking at the capabilities we had to create value for others, rather than having this stereotype image that we're in the oil business. No, we never thought that way, because you're much better off to learn the flaws in your thinking before you plunge into it than afterward. And I've never understood people who want to protect their ideas and not have them criticized. Like any decision I make, when I think we ought to make an acquisition or implement a strategy, I look for, okay, what are the key drivers in success or failure in this venture, and who is really good at each aspect, whether that's operations, marketing, distribution, whatever it is. I want challenges. I want people who are going to come in and say, okay, what's wrong? Tell me what's wrong with this. How can this go wrong? I want to understand all the pitfalls. And every time we go through that, we come up with a better answer than I had to start with. So the first thing is you only have people in leadership positions who have the humility and the understanding, and this is the scientific method, as Karl Popper's famous essay on this, science as falsification. The scientific method is you come up with a theory, and then you have an obligation to try to disprove it and solicit people who will disprove it, rather than say, I got the ultimate answer. This is it. I mean, as Einstein said, the best fate for any scientific theory is it becomes a limiting case for a subsequent theory. None of us are infallible and can see truth absolutely for all time. And as soon as we start thinking that way, we're on our way to ruination. So what we do is, and I try to set the example, is if somebody has a suggestion and has a criticism, even if I don't agree with you, say, thank you, I really appreciate you're doing that. And so you don't, rather than say, that was a stupid criticism, or that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. I've heard that people in other businesses say that. And what we need to do in our businesses, which we try here, is to ingrain in our people, first of all, you should only benefit to the extent you're creating value for others. So you better understand what aptitude you have that can be turned into valued skills, and not just valued skills today that will be valued in the future. So you need to first start with a mindset that you can learn, contribute, and succeed. And you're going to do whatever it takes to do that. And then you need to learn the values of success, such as integrity, humility, treating others with respect, having a desire to contribute. And then you need to experiment to find where you have aptitudes that can be turned into value skills. And you need to be open to contrary ideas and to welcome challenges and be willing to challenge. And then you need to learn to think to yourself, for yourself, and be creative. Always be trying to find a better way and become a lifelong learner.